Hello and welcome back to our next installment of Genesis in the Gospels. I'm Dr. Adam Irwin. I'm the adult Sunday school teacher for Faith Assembly of God in Toccoa, Georgia. And we'll be looking at our next lesson today as we are reading the Bible through supernatural eyes. Join with us in worship as we worship 2 Days of Elijah.
Behold, he comes, riding on a cloud, shining like the sun. At the trumpet call, yes, yes. So lift your are the days of Elijah, declaring the word of the Lord. And these are the days of your servant Moses, righteousness being restored. And though these are days of great trial, of famine and darkness and sword, still we are the voice in the desert, crying, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Behold, he comes, hey, riding on a cloud, yes, shining like the sun. At the trumpet call, so lift your voice. It's the year of Jubilee, and out of Zion's hill salvation comes. Are the days of Ezekiel, the dry bones becoming as fresh. And these are the days of your servant David, rebuilding a temple of praise. And these are the days of the harvest, yes Lord, the fields are as white in your word. Yes, and we are the laborers in your vineyard, declaring the word of the Lord. Behold, he comes, and riding on the cloud. Here he comes, shining like the sun. Hey, at the trumpet call, lift your voice, year of Jubilee. Yes, it is, out of Zion's hill salvation. Here he comes. Trumpet call, lift your year of Jubilee, and out of Zion's hill salvation comes. Yeah. Yes, Lord, yes, Lord. Come on, church, declare this tonight. There's no God like Jehovah. Come on. Say it. Like Jehovah, there's no God like Jehovah. 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 Nobody. There's no God like Jehovah. Nobody. We come to Anaheim, California to declare tonight, Jesus, there's no God like Jehovah. Nobody. Nobody. Not Buddha, nor Muhammad, nor Sun Myung Moon. Nobody, 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 there's no God like Jehovah. Nobody. 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 Nobody, nobody. Nobody, nobody. No God, no God, no God, no God. Jehovah reigns. Behold, He comes. Lift your voice. It's my year of jubilee. Yes, it is. Our Zion's King of salvation. Sing it again. Behold, He comes. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. Come on, Jesus. It's the year of jubilee. Yes, it is. Our Zion's King of salvation. Sing it again. Behold, He comes. Lift your voice. It's my year. It's your year. Out of Zion's King of salvation. Lift your voice. Lift your voice. It's the year of jubilee. Out of Zion's King of salvation.
As you can see on the screen, we're finishing up part 1 of our Sunday school lessons. Today we're looking at the bulls of Bashan and the cloud riders. Next week we'll start part 2 of our study of Genesis and the Gospels. Alright, so when you look at the story of the crucifixion as it's given to you in Matthew's Gospel, you'll see that it's a little different from the others. As we look at Jesus' crucifixion in Matthew 27, starting verse 25, going through verse 46, you'll see that since Matthew was written to Jewish congregations, they were very familiar with the Psalms, obviously. And Matthew's account of the crucifixion follows one of the Messianic Psalms, in this case Psalms 22. So that portion in Matthew follows right along with what you see in Psalms 22. So as we read Matthew's account of the crucifixion, we'll start in Matthew 27 verse 25. All the people answered, "His blood is on us and on our children." Then he released them to them Barabbas. But Yeshua, after having him whipped Pilate, he handed him over to be executed on the cross. The governor's soldiers took Yeshua into the headquarters building, and the whole battalion gathered around him. They stripped off his clothes and put on him a scarlet robe, wove thorn branches into a crown, and put it on his head, and put a stick in his right hand. Then they kneeled down in front of him and made fun of him. "Hail to the King of the Jews!" They spit on him and used a stick to beat him about the head. When they had finished ridiculing him, they took off the robe, put his own clothes back on him, and led him away to be nailed to the cross. As they were leaving, they met a man from Cyrene named Shimon, and they forced him to carry Yeshua's cross. When they arrived at a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they gave him wine mixed with bitter gall to drink, but after tasting it, he would not drink it. After they had nailed him to the cross, they divided his clothes among them by throwing dice. Then they sat down to keep watch over him there. Above his head they placed a written notice stating the charge against him. "This is Yeshua, the King of the Jews." Then two robbers were placed on crosses with him, one on their right and one on their left. People passing by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "So you can destroy the temple, can you, and rebuild it in 3 days? Save yourself, if you are the Son of God, and come down from the cross." Likewise, the head priest jeered at him along with the Torah teachers and elders. "He saved others, but he can't save himself. So he's king of Israel, is he? Let him come down now from the cross. Then we'll all believe him. He trusted God, so let him rescue himself if he wants. After all, he did say, I'm the Son of God. Even the robbers nailed up with him insulted him in the same way. From noon until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all the land was covered with darkness. At about 3, Yeshua uttered a cry, Eli, Eli, lema shvaktani. My God, why have you forsaken me? So, now compare that to the psalm, which every Jew would know, and which would jump out at them on this reading from Matthew, Psalms 22. For the leader set to sunrise, a psalm of David. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why so far from helping me, so far from my anguished cries? My God, by day I call to you, but you don't answer. Likewise at night, but I get no relief. Nevertheless, you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors put their trust. They trusted, and you rescued them. They cried to you and escaped. They trusted in you and were not disappointed. But I am a worm, not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me jeer at me. They sneer and shake their heads. He committed himself to Adonai, so let him rescue him. Let him set him free, if he takes such delight in him. But you are the ones who took me from the womb. You made me trust when I was on my mother's breasts. Since my birth I've been thrown on you. You are my God from my mother's womb. Don't stray far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no help. Many bulls surround me. Wild bulls of Bashan close in on me. They open their mouths wide against me, like ravening, roaring lions. I am poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart has become wax. It melts inside of me. My mouth is as dry as a fragment of a pot. My tongue sticks to my palate. You lay me down in the dust of death. Dogs are all about me. A pack of villains closes in on me. Like a lion, they pierced my hands and feet. I can count every one of my bones while they gaze at me and gloat. They divide my garments amongst themselves. For my clothing they throw dice. But you, Adonai, don't stray far away. My strength, come quickly to help me, rescue me from the sword. My life from the power of the dogs. Save me from the lion's mouth. You have answered me from the wild bull's horns. I will proclaim your name to my kinsmen. Right there in the assembly I will praise you. You who fear Adonai, praise him. All descendants of Jacob, glorify him. All descendants of Israel, stand in awe of him. For he has not despised or abhorred the poverty of the poor. But he did not hide his face from him, but listened to his cry. Because of you I will give praise in the great assembly. I will fulfill my vows in the sight of those who fear him. The poor will eat and be satisfied. Those who seek Adonai will praise him. Your hearts will enjoy life forever. All the ends of the earth will remember and turn to Adonai. All the clans of the nations will worship in your presence. For the kingdom belongs to Adonai, and he rules the nations. All who prosper on the earth will eat and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before him, including him who can't keep himself alive. A descendant will serve him. The next generation will be told of Adonai. They will come and proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, that he is the one who did it. So there you could hear some of the comparisons between Matthew's telling of the crucifixion and Psalm 22 that David is writing, including the famous verse 1, my God, why have you forsaken me? There it is. You still see it. A few of the key verses that compare with each other. On the left, you have from Psalms 22. On the right, you have... On the left, you have from Matthew. On the right, you have from Psalms. Alright, so let's take a look at some more on the bulls of Bashan here in particular. Because additionally, in Psalms 22... there are descriptions of the injuries suffered during crucifixion. I'm poured out like water, my bones are out of joint, my mouth is dry as a fragment of a pot, so on and so on, there in that section. I'm poured out like water, verse 14, as you can see. Verse 16, my strength is dry, my tongue is sticking to my jaws. These are descriptive of the crucifixion's injuries that are inflicted. So Matthew's account in chapter 27 is parallel to Psalms 22. So let's look in particular here at verse 12 of Psalms 22. Many bulls surround me, wild bulls of Bashan close in on me. Oh, look at that. We're back in Bashan. It's that place of evil, like we learned in the last lesson, right? Demonic death. Bashan means place of the serpent. Remember, they had to go through two cities, graves and the dead. It's the place of the underworld, the place of evil, where the giants ruled, where the dead lay thousands and thousands of those dolmens, a dolmen field. Bashan was described as a giant necropolis. Bashan is where the idolatry came into the northern kingdom of Israel. And it's where one of the calves, the golden calves, were set up when the kingdom of Israel seceded from the kingdom of Judah and Israel, from the combined kingdoms. So the worship of other gods, right, demons, death, this is part of Bashan's identity. So let's read Amos chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. All right, here we go. Listen, you cows of Bashan, who live on Mount Shimron, who oppress the poor and grind down the needy, who say to their husbands, bring something to drink. Adonai Elohim has sworn by his holiness that your time is surely coming. All right, so yes, in the historical context of that, he is talking to upper-class women of the northern kingdom of Israel who were idolaters of the golden calves that were set up in Bashan. But there's more to that. The word for poor there, who oppress the poor, that's dalim, and the needy, that's ebyonim. These are the same that are used in Psalms 82. Remember when we talked about Elohim stands in the midst of the assembly? There, he judges the Elohim. This is where God's talking to that divine council. God's talking to the gods. Those words for poor and needy, give justice to the weak and fatherless, uphold the rights of the wretched and poor, rescue the destitute and needy. Right? Those are the same words for poor and needy. So the words that we see here that are tied to the cows, the bulls of Bashan, are tied to the gods of the divine council in Psalm 82, where Yahweh judges the fallen gods of the nations. Right? So Amos is not only talking to the wealthy elites of Israel, but he's also talking and referencing the divine council, the gods of the nations that we see in Psalms 82. Recall also that much of the time when Israel goes astray, they worship idols in the form of calves or bulls. They did it in Exodus. They did it with the dividing of the kingdom there. Also, we should note the Baal and Molech and Asherah in Canaanite forms were usually seen in the form of bulls. Add that to the fact that Jesus had just come from the area of Bashan, right? Because he was in Caesarea Philippi, and around that area was where he came right before coming to Jerusalem. It's not too far a stretch to say that there were literally, in the spirit realm, the Elohim, the bulls of Bashan, these the gods of the nations, these watchers, those guys, dancing in glee around the tortured, suffering Son of God on the cross. Haha, you thought you were going to do us in. Well, look where you are now. We got you. We got you. You're dead. So there's a little bit on the bulls of Bashan, that intense spiritual moment and warfare going on the cross. But let's take a look, shift gears really, really quickly and abruptly here, and take a look at part 2 of our lesson, and take a look at the cloud rider. You know, a lot of people will say, you know, Jesus never said that he was Yahweh. I see it all the time on comments on YouTube videos and such. Jesus never claimed to be God. He never claimed to be Yahweh. But we know that when Jesus was asked that directly, he used the same I am that Yahweh used in Exodus. But also, just as incredibly, he did actually say that he was Yahweh before his death. Daniel 7. Let's flip over to Daniel 7, if you would. See if we can get there. Uh-oh. So in Daniel 7, this is in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babel. Daniel has a dream and visions as he's laying on his bed. This is the passage concerning the 4 beasts that Daniel had in that prophecy, dream, vision. But I specifically want to look at something else. Because this is important for the end times, which we've already studied. But it's important for something else too. Let's take a look in verses 9 and 10, and then in Ezekiel 1 is where we'll jump over to after that. So let's go ahead and get our fingers on Ezekiel 1. Okay. So Daniel 7, 9, and 10. As I watched, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient One took his seat. His clothing was white as snow. The hair on his head was like pure wool. His throne was fiery flames, with wheels of burning fire. A stream of fire flowed from his presence. Thousands and thousands ministered to him. Millions and millions stood before him. Then the court was convened, and the books were opened. Okay, so let's take a look at Ezekiel 1 here. This is where Ezekiel is seeing the vision on the Kavar River, the Kavar Canal. And of course he sees the living creatures, he sees the throne. Very incredible experience here. But I want us to look at verse 26 of Ezekiel 1. Above the dome that was over their heads was something like a throne that looked like a sapphire. On it, above it, was what appeared to be a person. I saw what looked like gleaming, amber-colored fire radiating from what appeared to be his waist upward. Downward from what appeared to be his waist, I saw what looked like fire, giving a brilliant light all around him. This brilliance around him looked like a rainbow and a cloud on a rainy day. This was how the appearance of the glory of Adonai looked. When I saw it, I fell on my face, and I heard the voice of someone speaking. So the divine council here in Daniel. Then the court, the council, the assembly was convened, and the books were open. So the divine council is meeting here in Daniel to determine the fate of those 4 empires, those 4 beasts. And they decided that they will be defeated, right? Especially because the arrogant words of the little horn, it was given over to be burned up completely. Their rulership was taken away from the other animals, but their lives were prolonged for a time and season. All right, so let's look here in Daniel 7, verses 13 and 14. I kept watching the night visions when I saw, coming with the clouds of heaven, someone like a son of man. He approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence. To him was given rulership, glory, and a kingdom, so that all peoples, all nations and languages should serve him. His rulership is an eternal rulership that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So, I would note that we see this same scene of the throne on the clouds, also in Ezekiel chapter 3, Ezekiel chapter 10, and Ezekiel chapter 38, as well as in Revelation. So it's a very consistent picture of what the glory of what God and his throne looks like there on the clouds. But if you notice there in Daniel 7, verse 13, I saw coming on the clouds of heaven someone like a man. Okay, it's important to note here. Now it's important to remember our narrative here as we're looking through of finding the supernatural, that supernatural war that's going on between God and the little gods of the nations, the sons of God, the watchers, the princes, the Elohim, little Elohim. And it's interesting, we're going to take a time out here from Daniel and delve into some Mesopotamian archaeology and history here as we look in Ezekiel 1 through 3. I want you to, let's go back to this this vision where Ezekiel is seeing the throne of God, because there's a little nugget, doesn't have anything to do with the cloud rider. Well, I mean, it does a little bit, but I want you to just get a little more hint of this. It says, in the 13th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the Kabar Canal, the heavens were open, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiakim. The word of the Lord came to Ezekiel the priest, the son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Kabar Canal, and the hand of the Lord was upon him there. Okay, so the Kabar Canal used to be thought of as the Mesopotamian version of the river Styx. Yes, the one that runs through the abyss. But scholars now believe that they have identified it definitively as Naru Kabari, which is today a dry riverbed called Shat-in Nil. And here's the important bit, because back in the day, this river that Ezekiel was standing next to actually flowed through the center of the town of Nippur. Now remember, Nippur is the city that the Tower of Enlil, or the Tower of Babel, situated right over the abyss where the Watchers were imprisoned, was, right? That's Nippur. Nippur has Tower of Babel sitting on top of the abyss where these Watchers, these Elohim, these fallen angels are imprisoned. And this is in the middle of Nippur. So Ezekiel is standing right there at the Tower of Babel, and Yahweh comes riding in on the clouds, showing off his power, not just to Ezekiel, but throwing shade, showing off his power to all of the fallen angels, the Watchers, the Elohim that are imprisoned right there. So he's throwing his power in their face, saying, "Hi, you're down there, I'm up here on the clouds. I am God, there is none like me." Later, in nearly the same place, God says to Zechariah, in Zechariah chapter 4, "Then he said to me, this is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts," or Lord of armies. "Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel you shall become a plain, and he shall bring forward the top stone amid shouts of grace, grace to it." Now a mountain can be a giant task, of course, but in many Eastern languages there are words for mountain. And there are also words for unreachable places, like mountain or abyss, particularly in Ugaritic and Canaanite, some of those other languages. You have a word for mountain, but then you also have a word for unreachable place. And that unreachable place could be a mountain, or it could be an abyss. Well, the word used here for "O great mountain" is not geographical mountain. Instead, it is unreachable place. So it's that second word that's used here. So this could read, "Who are you, O abyss? Before Zerubbabel, you are just a plain. Anyone could walk on you." Zechariah was able to hear Yahweh himself taunting Enlil and the Watchers chained in the abyss. God is attacking them, he is taunting them, and it's all over the Old Testament here. So let's jump back over to the cloud rider as we see Daniel, again, chapter 7, verse 13. "I kept watching when I saw someone coming on the clouds of heaven, someone like a son of man. He approached the Ancient One." Okay, so we've got two people riding on clouds here. Now we can compare all of this to Isaiah 19:1, Deuteronomy 33:26, Psalm 68:32 through 33, and Psalms 104, 1 through 4. As we see in all of those passages, who rides on the clouds? Who is the cloud rider? It's Yahweh, God. The Ancient of Days, as it says. But here in Daniel 7:13, who is also riding the clouds? Someone like the Son of Man. someone like a son of man. That phrase is used predominantly, as you sort through ancient texts, that phrase is used in Enoch for the Messiah, the anointed one. So it's a man behaving as God. He is there with Yahweh. Yahweh rides the clouds, and someone else rides the clouds. It's a second person, and I say that with a capital P, a second person. Because in Near Eastern Mediterranean culture, Baal is often pictured as riding the clouds. See, in that time and cultures and those religions, that understanding, only the leader, only the high God, only the ultimate can ride the clouds. For example, Zeus could, but not Neptune. Not Hades, not Venus, only Zeus. Baal could ride the clouds, but not Molech. Right? The one riding the clouds is the ultimate. So here, God is saying, I'm the only one who can ride on the clouds. I'm the Most High. The Ancient of Days, Yahweh, is the cloud rider. But there's a second person in the Trinity. The Son of Man is shown riding on the clouds. God does not share his glory with anyone. So this second person riding on the clouds must also be God. So you have God and God. He's not sharing his glory. It's a second person of the Trinity, co-equal, right? So you've got the Son of Man, who is also Yahweh, right? Jesus is Lord. Now let's look over in Matthew 26. Jesus is before Caiaphas at his trial. Let's look starting in verse 59. The head priest and the whole Sanhedrin looked for some false evidence against Yeshua, so they might put him to death. But they didn't find any, even though many liars came forward to give testimony. At last, however, 2 people came forward and said, "This man has said, I can tear down God's temple and build it again in 3 days." The high priest stood up and said, "Have you nothing to say to the accusation these men are making?" Yeshua remained silent. The high priest said to him, "I put you under oath. By the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And here is the only time that Jesus speaks at the trial in all this. Yeshua said to him, "The words are your own, but I tell you that one day you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of God Most High and coming on the clouds of heaven." Right? So, there at the trial, as Caiaphas is picking and picking and picking, "By the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And Jesus basically says, "You really want to know who I am, Caiaphas? I'm the Son of Man who rides on the clouds in Daniel. I'm God in the flesh. I am Yahweh in human form." But of course, Jesus knew that this would get the death sentence, because that's the plan, like we learned last video, all along, in divine misdirection. Right? His death is what will bring salvation. So, for those who say Jesus never claimed to be God, right here, I am the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Most High, and I'm that second cloud rider. I am equal with God. I am a cloud rider. I am Yahweh in flesh. He could have continued on. Now, if you think about it, hey, Caiaphas, you remember 33 years ago when a star showed up over Bethlehem? When Herod killed all those boys, all those kids, and those magicians from the Parthian Empire showed up at the exact same time that Daniel said the Messiah would appear at the end of those weeks? At the exact same place that the Essenes said Messiah would appear? You know how old I am, Caiaphas. I'm 33, and I'm from Bethlehem. You missed me. Anyway, might as well have been what he was saying. He very much said, I am Yahweh in flesh. So, next video, we're going to start on our part 2. Hopefully, we'll be filming in our classroom. So it may be a little bit different. We'll try it for a few weeks and see how it works out. But next week, we're going to start part 2. We're going to look at the sons of God and the Nephilim. So thank you for joining us. Look forward to seeing you then.